Recently, we watched as Stellar reached a new milestone. This milestone was the fact that Stellar crossed 15 million daily transactions, which is a threshold very few blockchains ever achieve. A big moment for the network and its community. Now, over the last couple months, we have been following Stellar's recent moves. Majority of them include stablecoin initiatives, stablecoin expansions, and major partnerships with big players to trial and test stablecoins at scale. I personally see the transaction volume picking up on Stellar going forward, and I do think that these big milestones that originally were not seen by networks in this space will eventually be witnessed by some of these extremely efficient networks like, for example, Stellar. And it really is because of all of the major announcements and partnerships that are in place. Now, also, on top of this, we think about mass adoption. And in this video, I really want to go over exactly why Stellar will achieve mass adoption. Now, it's not just going to be one network that gets a mass adoption, right? We know it's going to be multiple networks that also greatly, are affected by this because, again, mass adoption is just going to happen over time. But some of these networks are enabling it right now, and we can see the early signs of it. And Stellar is one of those networks that we can see the early signs of mass adoption on. But let's first start off by going into some of the breakdowns behind the TPS of Stellar and also looking at the transactions on the network. So if we're going back and just looking at the last 7 days, let's just go and look at the last week. In the last week, there has been over 75.9 million transactions, which is very good to see. The average TPS or real-time TPS over the last 7 days has been about roughly 125.5. Also very good, especially when we think about other networks. In the last roughly 24 hours, we can see real-time TPS is up almost 10 million transactions in the last day. Now, since that milestone day on November 24th with 15 plus million transactions have kind of dropped off a bit. Now, this is to be expected, especially with down days in the market. But again, overall, to have 9 plus million transactions every single day on the network, that's very good. And that's pretty much the average, and it has been the average since going back the last 90 days. Now, we can look at everything here in terms of real-time TPS as well. We could also see the TPS has been pretty significant, right? We've been seeing TPS really rising, which is telling us the network is starting to see more and more increased volume on the network. And this is based around stablecoin initiatives and other initiatives as well. We already know with some of the big announcements and partnerships that are in place, a lot of use of the network is starting to pick up, which is very good to see. Now, let's talk a little bit more about mass adoption of Stellar, because these TPS numbers and transactions as well, it's very good. In fact, it's very good to the point where it's showing us that, yes, Stellar is ready to see a lot more transactions hitting the network. We know that the scale around Stellar is there, and we also know that recent upgrades have improved the scale of Stellar. And that's where we look at the roadmap for the Stellar Development Foundation. This is a new roadmap, and it's a roadmap for 2025. Now, the roadmap is called Product Roadmap Build to Scale. Right off the rip, we have, after a decade of development, Stellar is now feature complete and ready to meet the needs of the global economy. Our roadmap is focused on scalability and usability, because that's what it takes to drive mass adoption. Looking at this, we have a few things. Right off the rip, Lab 3.0, SDP host and mode as well. These are just core things around usability. We also have more usability upgrades. This is, again, more usability. And then we start to look at the updates. The big updates that are in place still that have yet to get hit, which is, of course, outside of usability, the scalability side. 2.5 second block times, SDP single-use wallets as well, and then also Contract Copilot. This is more so around usability. And then we also have Open Zeppelin token standards. All of this is based around scalability, and this is still being built in. This is still being worked on. And then we also have the 5,000 TPS as well. All of this is going to be very exciting to see get completely approved. Here we have the road to 5,000 TPS scaling Stellar in 2025. This is exactly what we want to see. This is exactly what I want to see from every network in the space, preparing for the future and future-proofing the network. Stellar is doing so through all of these upgrades. They are preparing for something big. Now, we already know that there has been recent announcements, like, for example, US Bank testing a stablecoin on the Stellar network. When you start having big institutional players and enterprise players tapping into stablecoin initiatives on public blockchains, we're starting to see the big picture form, which is these institutional players and enterprise players are going to enable mass adoption on these networks. They're going to bring their user base with them. Now, on top of this, we also have, from November 28th, success means billions of people can move money instantly, safely, and affordably without even realizing they're using blockchains. This is from the CBO of Stellar Development Foundation regarding how institutional adoption is the unlock for mainstream success. Again, going back to that US Bank trial, we got to think about this, right? Everyone is realizing stablecoins are becoming a big deal. But stablecoins are settled on the underlying network, which is creating demand for the underlying gas token, XLM. Most people will see stablecoin transactions. That's it. They won't know what network is being utilized. They won't know what gas token is being utilized. This is how we see the big picture. Billions using blockchain without realizing it. Because the user-facing apps aren't really changing, right? Stablecoins can easily be tied back to these applications or to these companies. MoneyGram is a perfect example of it. We can see mass adoption through stablecoin initiatives with these big companies that people already utilize, and they don't realize what's changing. They just know that things are working a lot more efficiently. This is mass adoption. This article is breaking down how Stellar's mission to move money seamlessly for everyone is in play. The CBO says that they see Stellar as an invisible blockchain infrastructure powering real-world financial inclusion, enabling billions to move money safely and instantly through seamless institutional partnerships. And of course, yes, we look at MoneyGram. MoneyGram is a key driver here. But then we think about Franklin Templeton. We think about US Bank. I mean, all of these big initiatives, all of these big moves that have been really kind of being made. And then we think about the upgrades to the Stellar blockchain, and we're starting to see the plan to onboard billions of users onto Stellar becoming a reality. And what's even crazier about this is we just got another big update from Stellar regarding an upgrade, which was Protocol X-Ray, all about privacy, bringing native BN254 plus Poseidon to Sorbonne. ZK apps on Stellar just became way easier and cheaper. The testnet is January 7th. The mainnet is planned for January 22nd. Privacy season is loading. And when we think about what this really is for, it's for institutional grade adoption. We have over here, we are living in the Renaissance era of layer ones, and Stellar Org is leading it. The significance of Protocol X-Ray goes well beyond simple privacy. Think ZK KYC, privacy-enabled compliance, confidential transfers, permission dexes, collateral management, multi-token standards, private stablecoins. Primitives like Project X-Ray enable backwards compatibility to bring banks and institutions into the new world. The Renaissance era is here, and ZK is the catalyst. This X-Ray upgrade, Protocol 25, builds upon what we already got with Protocol 23, and this is going to ultimately enable the biggest institutional players, enterprises as well, to tap into Stellar. This is going to be one of the biggest upgrades to date for Stellar, and I'm so happy about this because we just got the US Bank announcement. This is going to bring in so many additional institutional players. You got to remember that US Bank is just the first initial one. I think that that's the thing that most people are missing with this announcement is like, all right, yeah, this is big. US Bank is a top bank in the US. When you onboard one, many follow. We already know that Stellar has almost $300 million in stablecoins on the platform. Over 580,000 stablecoin holders as well. Massive amounts of tokenized value. US Bank. This announcement with US Bank is a catalyst. When this goes live and it's out of the testing phase, combined with these major upgrades like Protocol 25, this is going to be an accelerator. It's going to be an accelerator because all of this is showing and proving institutional players that Stellar has everything in place to launch these types of initiatives on. Privacy has now become a critical thing to focus on from institutional players. And remember that Stellar already had in place everything that they needed for Franklin Templeton to tap in with tokenization initiatives. And that was back in 2021, 2022. We're starting to see Stellar prepare for the future. This is the Renaissance era, and it's enabling these big banks and institutional players. US Bank is number one. I wonder who's going to be number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and onwards. We're just starting to see the beginning of this. But just like we saw in that article, right? We're starting to see mass adoption becoming a reality through seamless institutional partnerships, because those institutional players will bring their client base on chain. This is how Stellar, and any network for that case, achieves mass adoption. Stellar is already there. They have Franklin Templeton tapped in. They have Wisdom Tree tapped in. They have PayPal with PayPal USD tapped in. We also know that Stellar has been announcing major expansions. US Bank is not the only one, but this is a big one. And it enables so much more exposure to the Stellar blockchain to millions, potentially even billions of future users. I know billions is such a huge, topic of user base, but we got to think about all of the names tied back to Stellar now. I really do think that with MoneyGram, with US Bank, with Franklin Templeton, with Wisdom Tree, and who knows who's going to be next, we're starting to see a large customer base focused on through Stellar. And it's not going to happen overnight with mass adoption, but these types of announcements, these types of moves, these types of upgrades all carve out a path to mass adoption. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video.